I think of that supporting cast, which is your banker, your accountant, anybody that works with your business. Take your banker to lunch once a quarter. Keep them in tune with what's going on in your business so that when you really do need them, you don't have to go through that whole story again. And they're more apt to help too. So the people part is more than just employees.
Welcome to the Marketing Boost Solutions Podcast. Join host Marco Torres, co-founder of MarketingBoost.com, along with expert guests as they deliver incredible, proven solutions to your marketing challenges in each power-packed episode. Captain Marco has guided thousands of entrepreneurs, growing their sales and marketing through the use of value-add incentives. His Facebook groups are home to more than 84,000 entrepreneurs who are raking in sales with his advice. Get ready to be blown away with game-changing lessons for your business.
Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Boost Solutions Podcast. My guest today has owned several businesses. He understands what it's like working long hours, never leaving the office, and end the day not feeling like you accomplished anything, constantly putting out fires and the chaos of managing cash. And more importantly, he knows what it takes to overcome those roadblocks in business. He's a small business coach, mentor, serial entrepreneur, husband, and father with a passion of helping others live a life they love. Why? Because he's been there and even wrote a book about it. He believes that when one of us steps up to chase our dreams, the ones we actually want to be living, the world becomes a better place. Now his mission is to help you reach yours. Help me welcome to the stage and meet Micheal Morrison, business coach and empathy and accountability, not judgment. Hello, Micheal.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Honored to be here.
Oh, so I look forward to this conversation and chat about being the boss, as your business states, business ownership simplified for success.
Yes, sir.
So tell us your story, Micheal. Let's start there. How did you get to becoming the business boss, business ownership, and business coach?
Well, it was full of trials and tribulations. I'll say that. It all started with being kidnapped by gunpoint from my biological father at a younger age, which caused me to grow up as an introvert, not very studious in school, always self-doubting myself, all those mindset things that a lot of us have, and overcoming those when I started adulting, as we call it, and trying to be someone that I never thought I could be. And so that's how it first started, was when I was not married, no children, and I decided to start my first business. And it was mostly to prove myself that I could do something myself. And then over time, it just kind of morphed into other businesses. And one of my very first business coaches, I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades now. One of my first business coaches encouraged me to be a business coach. I was kind of looking for another venture, and he asked me, have you ever thought about being a business coach? And I said I didn't feel I was qualified. And he was like, what? You've owned businesses, and most business coaches have never even owned one. You would be overqualified if you're comparing to, what's out in the market. And so I tried it kind of as a philanthropy effort. We have a lot of small businesses in Oklahoma where I'm at. And so I thought I'd reach out and touch some of those that are just starting and see if I couldn't help them, nudge them along a little bit. And quit that about 2 years later. And my business coach caught back up with me later, and he said, are you still doing it? And I said, no, I hated it. And he said, why? And I said, because they didn't do anything with the information. And so he said, well, that's because it's free. You're giving them free information, charge them $50, $10, whatever. So I started doing that. Of course, everybody walked away. Now they have to pay for something that's free. Hey, they didn't do anything with it. Now they don't want to pay for it. And I said, yeah, I'm done with this. And at the time, one of my marketing companies was kind of taking off, if you will. We were being recognized locally and regionally for our growth. And of course, civic organizations, Rotary clubs, things like that started asking me to come speak, share your experience, how you got where you are. And of course, I did that and mentioned business coaching and kind of that story there a little bit in my talks. And there would be people that came up to me afterwards and said, do you still do business coaching? And just out of the clear blue, I said, for a fee. And they said, I'll pay you. And then that's how my coaching got started. And kind of the rest is history, as they say.
Well, cool, cool. And so that story about being kidnapped at gunpoint, that sounds like you reminds you grew up in the wild, wild west a little bit there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're in Oklahoma. So it's kind of fitting, right, for my
Right.
story.
Yeah. So awesome. Uh, so now you've owned a bit. Tell me a little bit about the types of businesses that you've owned and ran before you moved over into coaching.
Yeah. The first one I started back in the 90s, I believe we started before or right around the same time that Google founded. So nobody even knew what Google was. So if that dates kind of where I was at the time, we had to go to the library. I know a lot of people don't know what that is, but we didn't have this thing called the internet with YouTubes and free information accessible. We had to go read about it or talk to people. And so that's kind of when I first started my business. And that's kind of my baby, if you will, out of all of them that I really enjoyed growing and scaling. We grew it up to about 80 employees or so as a marketing company. We did direct mail, printing, promotional products, web, everything traditional marketing and digital. And that's kind of where I kind of got my feet wet, if you will, from my coaching experience. And that's why I coach from empathy, not judgment, and experience. Is as I took a lot of the well-known books, the frameworks of scaling a business that's out there and available now, implemented them in my business. Of course, I got to see firsthand what worked, what didn't work. And so that's kind of how I coach from today is more about where is your business at and what of this past experience of mine, these tools, these resources that I learned and actually used, and how do they fit with this business? So the way we coach is very customized for each business. It's not we just follow a framework.
What a great background for being a business coach, because as having a marketing agency and a direct mail, email, all of the different functions you were doing there, uh, is really, I would imagine you obviously you had clients, so you were for each client you had to help them design their campaigns, their creatives, their strategies, and so all of that was like the background on not only building a successful business, but working with clients that you're coaching, whether you knew it or not, I guess at the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we weren't, there's a lot of companies where you can go and get your product and they kind of have their system that they follow. We didn't have a system. We really, especially with direct mail, when it was real hot, and it still is, direct mail still works. But back then, people would come to us, I just want to mail to everybody around my business. And we really took the targeted approach of really trying to help them define their target market, find the right messaging. Now, of course, there were those customers like, I just want to get this mailed. I just want customers in the door. I want sales. Okay, we can do that too. But for the most part, we really tried to hold their hand so they could get, a good return on investment. And so I guess if you could say that we were coaching and helping them with marketing, that would be a fair statement.
Yeah, Michael, your expertise and is about teaching business owners to build a business that runs without them. What are the top three things that every business needs to have a business that can run without them?
That's a great question, and I want to kind of expand on what that means to that runs without you. Some business owners will ask, so you say I can just have this business, go to the beach, never be involved. And I'm like, no, that's not really possible. Somebody has to lead that train. But there are more business owners today that I talk to that haven't taken a week or two vacation for any period of time. That could be 10 years, 20 years, however long they've owned their business. Or some business owners I talk to, they can't even go play golf in the afternoon unannounced, right? So if they announce it 2 weeks in advance, sometimes they can prepare their people. But those are the types of businesses we talk about when we say that runs without you. And we do have other entrepreneurs we work with that when we do get their business running without them, maybe we hire a CEO or a president, general manager that directly reports to that business owner. So I like to clarify what that looks like because a lot of business owners are struggling and they're working so hard, not getting anywhere, and they just can't even comprehend what that even looks like. They're like, "That's impossible. Have you ever seen my business?" And I'm like, "Yes, I saw one in myself. I owned it. It was in disarray." And we got to the point where the business owners did not have to be there. Brought on
Absolutely. We typically two things when you're a business owner. One, you kind of create this environment. It's easy to create where you almost want to micromanage everything. You want to feel I'm needed. This business runs because of me. It couldn't work without me. I'm the blood of this business. I'm the,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, you're creating a business with zero value
Yeah,
if you were to consider if you wanted to. I mean, if something happened to you, if you got sick, if you got ill, if you passed away, and if the business depends on you for the whole kit and caboodle to work, then it's going to dry, it's going to fall off the vine quite quickly and fall and leave nothing for your heirs that of all the work you put into it, it's not going to be there for them. On the other hand, if you can build the business and set it up with enough systems in place that your staff can operate whether you're there or not, it makes a huge difference, especially if you're looking to ever have an out to sell the business at some point down the road. It's only going to have any value, or it's going to have 10 times more value if the business runs without you
absolutely.
before the new owners come into place. I would imagine you would agree.
Absolutely. And I'll share this before because I do have 3 things that I find are essential that every business must have to have a business that runs without them. But I want to share this because this is so important. A third of our clients are 55 years and older. And this goes to your point of the business isn't worth anything. They have gotten to the point where they see that they've probably got 5 to 10 good years left, of working hard. And then they got to do something with this business. But right now, what they're finding is their business isn't worth anything and nobody wants it because they are the business and their kids don't want it because they have kids and they're like, I'm not doing to my kids what my dad did to me, which is never be home, always working, always working. Why do I want that life? So the kids don't want it. Nobody in the family wants it. Nobody wants to work that many hours. And of course, somebody like me, if I want to buy a business, I don't want to buy a job. So if I see that it requires that business owner, which means I'm going to have to replace him or her to run that business, I don't want it. So the business is not worth anything. And I know for a lot of business owners, we count on that being our retirement, right? For most business owners. So I hope that business owners will start considering, if you're of any age, to be thinking about not just how am I going to make it through the week or the month, but also be thinking about the end of my life or the end of the road or when I want to get out, the exit, as you called it, the out. And the 3 things that I found that are essential in every single business is number one, guiding principles. So I consider your guiding principles kind of like your North Star, your guiding your mission statement, your vision, your strategy, your 10-year strategy. Where are we trying to go? We've got a client that we just started working with yesterday, and we've discovered their purpose statement and their mission statement, but they don't even really know what kind of business they want to have yet, which is incredible because it's like if you can figure out how you want to live, where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, then we'll find a product placement that can fit the mold. If this is how many hours you want to work or this is what your life looks like, we can find a business to fit that mold. Most people do it the opposite way. They're a great electrician and they start this business and then they're miserable because they're working 14, 16, 18 hours a day and they don't know how to run a business and they get stuck on that hamster wheel, as the E-Myth says. And so having that guiding principle, all those things in place. And then secondly is systems and processes. So your SOPs, repeatable tasks, have those documented so everybody's doing things the same way. It's easily to change hands, if you will, kind of hand off that baton from one employee to another. And then thirdly is people. And I know for a lot of people, they think that we're just talking about employees. Well, when I think of people, I think of that supporting cast that every business must have, which is your banker, your accountant, any vendors, resources, suppliers, anybody that works with your business, are they the right fit? Can your bank handle your lending needs when you need them? Are you staying in touch with your banker? Become a friend with that banker. I found that community banks are best for small businesses. All big banks have their place, but for small businesses, community banks I found work best. Take your banker to lunch once a quarter. Keep them in tune with what's going on in your business so that when you really do need them, you don't have to go through that whole story again. They're already up to date. They're in tune with what you're needing, and they're more apt to help too versus I just start reaching out and I need $100,000 today, and well, they got to get the backstory first, kind of find out how your business runs, operates. Is it legit, or are you just overextending yourself? That kind of stuff. So the people part is more than just employees. It's the marketing company. I know a lot of people will say, well, you got to have sales, you got to have cash. Well, I also say if you have the right people, you'll have all that.
Hmm. That is interesting. You're right. How do you surround yourself with the experts on your team? And that, as you describe it here, it's not about just having employees. Did you hire an agency to run your marketing versus in-house? Um, and the other relationships, like you talk about your accountant and so on, and the banking, having the relationship with a banker is a good idea.
Yes.
So talk to me about, it's one of the things that you also provide is, well, let's get, before I do that, what are the top three challenges you'd say most businesses have in common, and how do they overcome them? How do they prepare for them versus waiting until they're facing it head on?
Yeah. Well, I have found with most small businesses, the number one challenge is the business owner, him or herself. They're the bottleneck, right? When a business owner calls us and says, does your company help with this? We always say yes. And the reason we say yes is because whatever problem they're having, that's not the problem. That's a symptom of the root of the problem, right? So we have to dig deeper. That's just something that's happening because they haven't got something else figured out or under control. And so I would say one of the challenges most business owners have is mindset because we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times we had a job and we don't want somebody else to tell us how to do our business because that's why we left a job because we thought we could do it better. So kind of overcoming that, I kind of break people's heart when I say you, Miss or Mr. Business Owner, are the worst employee. That's why you're a business owner. Okay. So you be the business owner and you let your employees do what they're great at, hire for skill set and let them do their thing, which goes into the delegation part. So once we kind of get over that mindset challenge of letting go, because we think no one can do it as good as we can. After we get through that, then it's the delegation part of letting go and actually implementing, finding those tasks that they're doing that they shouldn't be. So we have a delegation quadrant, is what we call it. And it kind of looks at the four areas of things you're doing, things you love, like, dislike, and hate. And then it goes through the things that you're great at, good at, okay at, and horrible at. And we kind of start in that bottom right quadrant of these are the things you hate. These are the things you're not good at. So those are the first things we're going to delegate because number one, you're going to procrastinate every time it comes time to do them because you hate doing them. You're not good at it. You're trying to figure it out every time. You're probably not going to do it right. So let's just start there. So the delegation is kind of that next part after the mindset. And then the third is actual, I'd say implementation, following up, holding people accountable because I know like a lot of business owners we'll come up with this great idea, we'll bring in a coach or we'll do this and it's kind of like that honeymoon and the honeymoon phase is different for different people. It could be a week, it could be a month, and the next thing you know we're on the next shiny penny. And so we come in with something else and we kind of forget this other stuff and we just think it's going to continue happening and it's not. Somebody still has to be that champion to make sure enforce it, make sure people are being held accountable, And so we kind of forget about the good things that are happening and let those go by wayside. And a perfect example is a business owner that we work with, 40-year-old business. In one of our meetings recently, they got a phone call from a homeowner because they go out to homes and do some installs in their home, saying, "My house smells like smoke. Every time your installers go out to the van to get tools or whatever, they smoke cigarettes." And he said, "When did this?" He got all irate. Who let this happen? This employee had been there for 31 years at this company. Who let this happen? And I raised my hand and I said, "I don't know. When did you let it?" Perfect. I mean, valid question. You're the leader of that ship. So those are kind of some of the things that I see challenge wise.
Got it. Got it. Well, let's take a minute and hear from our sponsor, marketingboost.com. We'll be right back.
It's time to wow, surprise, and impress your clients with the most powerful customer draw card available anywhere. The Marketing Boost Solutions Show is brought to you by Marketing Boost, where you can get valuable travel and restaurant incentives to drive your leads from prospects to paying customers. Now you can offer complimentary hotel stays in over 130 destinations worldwide. Go to marketingboostsolutions.com and try it for free right now.
You just heard from marketingboost.com and how you too can use marketing incentives, how you can use our travel incentives, our complimentary hotel stays, hotel savings cards, and restaurant savings vouchers to enhance whatever your call to action is. If you haven't heard about Marketing Boost yet, click the links below at the end of the show here. Don't do it now, do it later, and find out how our travel incentives can blow your business up with more leads, more sales, and help you close more deals. And we're back talking to how to grow your business with Micheal here. So let's get back to you, sir. Tell us more about one of the things you do as well is provide loans to business owners. Let's talk about that. And what kind of loan should I be searching for and going after?
Well, one of the things about BOSS, it's an acronym for Business Ownership Simplified for Success. And so when we created this company, we wanted to start adding products and services that business owners really need. And so kind of establishing what are those things and kind of looking back at my career as being an entrepreneur. And the first thing I needed was guidance. And so we did business coaching first is what we offer because we feel just like I didn't know what I didn't know. I can read all the books, I can watch all the YouTubes, but sometimes they're not applicable for what I'm actually needing, or I've actually implemented some of that stuff. It's not quite working. So, kind of having someone that's already been there, done that, that can kind of give me the fast track to get past those things. I like to say my greatest lessons learned are failures. And so, with some guidance and coaching, you also kind of get that side of the business as well. I wouldn't hire a coach that hasn't owned a business, and I wouldn't hire a coach that hasn't failed. I want to hear those outcomes. I want to hear like what are those red flags I need to be working for or looking for. I've even had someone question me not too long ago asking, "Well, you filed bankruptcy before. Why would I use a coach like you?" And I was like, "Do you want to file bankruptcy?" No. And I said, "Okay, then you want a coach like me because I have, and that's why, I can see those kind of red flags." And our purpose or our reasoning for bankruptcy in one business was the business partnership imploded. That's really all it was. The business was successful, it was profitable, and there was just a disagreement. And so it kind of left some of us with the bag, if you will. But then the second thing that we found that most small businesses need is loans. The reason why we got into the lending is because many times, and I have nothing with against banks, like I said earlier, you got to have a banker friend. But I know for most small businesses, when we need money, we need it now. We're not in the position to sit and wait. We're not in the position where we have a resource on staff like a CFO or a controller that can say, "Hey, your runway, your bandwidth of money is going to run out in 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever if we don't do something different." So most small business owners don't realize they need money until they need it. And when you go through a bank, a lot of times it can take some time. There's credit checks. It has to go through underwriting. Sometimes it can be days, weeks, maybe a couple of months if it's a really uh, big loan. But then other times we might get a no or a yes at the end of it. Then we have to go to another bank. This is a lending partner that we have about 200 lending institutions that can say yes or no in a matter of days. So at least the business owner can move on if they're not approved. Most of the time they are. We do all kinds of loans as
Let
far
me
as,
interrupt you real quick. By the way, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, we are showing his website, Boss Ownership Simplified.com, Boss Ownership Simplified.com, where you can see, learn more about his coaching and his loans. And but go ahead there, continue. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make
oh,
sure
no, you're
everybody knew.
great.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing this.
Hmm.
So for the loans, we offer all types. We offer SBA loans, we offer collateral, we offer working capital, equipment loans, we offer real estate loans, term loans, lines of credit. Pretty much the top, I'd say 8 to 10 loans that most small business owners would reach out for. The real estate loans, just to clarify, is not for residential. It's for investors that want to rehab, remodel, flip, rent, those types of things. So it is only for business owners or LLCs, corporations, things like that. But we have found right there at the bottom of each one of those loans, it shows that it's only a soft pull on credit. That's something else that when you go to a bank, every time you have to go to a different bank, there's probably going to be a credit check against you. And for all of ours, it's a soft pull until it's approved. And then, of course, we go into the actual process of really doing the credit checks and everything. And they're comparable to the loans that you would get out of the, out of the financial institutions like a bank and things. And so we set that up to really help business owners so they can get an answer quick. And as long as they have hope, knowing that I can at least I've been kind of pre-approved, at least I have hope. And I can kind of get that off my mind to get back to focusing on the business until the next steps in the loan process.
And for example, some of the business loans, like a line of credit, is that on the LLC, or it's personally backed up with the business owner?
Yes. So on these, it would be typically just like any other banking institution. If a bank would require personal guarantee, then so will ours because they are financial institutions. It's not a
Hmm.
room full of people with money offering money to business owners. These are actual financial institutions that have to follow the same requirements that any bank would.
Yeah, and even if they were, they would still want some collateral,
Oh,
some
yeah,
or some
absolutely.
or some backing, of course. Cool. So you offer coaching and the loans, a great opportunity there. And then, so tell us about one of your online courses I was taking note about, and it's one thing that I believe strongly in, yet there is downside to it, and that's business partnerships. Are they right for you, and how do you know? Tell me about your course that talks about whether or not a partnership is right for you.
That's a great question. And that was my first, and it's still my favorite course that I've done because this one really, really comes from personal experience. This isn't something that you'll find on the internet. And I know there's a lot of things you can find, suggestions and tips. I don't know where that information came from, so I can't validate it, but I can validate from our course. This comes from the shoes that I walked in. And I found that a lot of times with business partnerships, the number one reason after one of mine failed, and it failed big, big. After it failed, I thought this is a learning opportunity to go find out why some business partnerships work and why some don't. And there was a common theme that I found in every single one of them that did work or didn't work, and that was their core values did or did not align. So you have some people that are kind of, they'll say yes to anything and we'll worry about that later if we have to come back to it. You have other people that follow the rules to the T, those types of things. What are those core values that people, some people like to work in the business, They like to get their fingernails dirty. They don't feel like they're worth their keep if they're not actually working in the business alongside their team. And then there's other people like myself that say, hey, I've got to be the visionary of this business. I've got to be thinking about the business, getting out there, be the face of the business. So you've got one business owner kind of working in the business a lot of hours, not seeing the other person there, vice versa. And that's going to start creating some tension because I'm working harder than you. Well, I'm missing my kids at night because I'm going to all these functions our company keeps sponsoring, sitting at the table and this, that, and another. So things like that. That's just kind of one example. And then in that course, we also talk about what are kind of the top 20 to 25 questions that every business partner wishes they would have known before they signed that paper. So we kind of go through that. And so we kind of walk them through all the areas that I actually explored, finding from personal experience, and then knowing those questions to ask other partnerships, like not how did you become successful? That's kind of a overrated question. It's like, what happened here and what happened there and what would you have done differently?
I agree with that. In my entire life, nearly every business I've owned, and it's been a bunch, have always been with partners.
Mm.
And there is not all have gone well, but fortunately most have. But it is there are challenges. It's like, but I strongly believe in them at the end of the day because you're leveraging, it's like, hey, after 2008, for example, I lost everything. And I had, a disaster of a crash and burn and pulled my way back up. And one of the ways I pulled my way, I found three other friends of mine, all in the same boat. We all had the know-how. We didn't have a lot of capital between us, but between us, we couldn't have afforded, none of us would have been able to afford to hire the others. But as a team, we were able to pool our expertise, our energy in different areas and, divide and conquer and build a huge business. But um, one of the mistakes we made, and I would caution others to do, you probably cover it in your course, is how do you set up a proper, operating agreement from the start? How do you make sure that everybody is on a, like you say, those core values that we're in agreement of what's expected of each other down the road? I mean, at the beginning, everybody's willing to go gung ho and work
Oh
really
yeah.
hard, but then as the successes come in, that can also be a detriment to the business. Now we're making a lot of money, and then different people have different, opinions of how hard they need to keep working and what have you, and should they continue to pull their equal distribution when they're not putting in the work and so on, and it starts
Yeah.
to it can easily get ugly. But having you know the foresight to have a proper attorney write up the operating agreements and all of the contingencies that might come down the road in advance that everybody is checking off on, including the fact that, okay, if you're not going to be around, you can still be a partner, but we're going to hire someone to replace your workload, but you're still going to,
Absolutely.
and so on and so forth. So how can you do all that in advance?
Well, and
Um,
most partnerships, if you are you probably have experienced the same thing. Most partnerships, they're sitting at the campfire, they're sitting at each other's house, they're having a drink, they're sharing stories. Oh, we would make the best partners. We've known each other for so long. And they never do that due diligence before they sign the paperwork. And then they find all the other stuff. And I say that it's a divorce in business is worse than a divorce in marriage from my experience, because in a marriage, it's mostly emotions. There are some property, tangible items, there's kids, animals, whatever. But in a business, it's all about the money. And things get really ugly when you start messing with somebody's livelihood. And when you talk about a business partnership, things start exploding. And almost every business partnership that I've tried to help calm the waters, they, when they originally partnered, they're like, oh, we've known each other for 20 years. We'd never fight about that. And that's the one thing that split them up because they never talked about it. And most marriages, only 50% of those last, right? I think that's kind of the typical percentage that we see everywhere. 50% of marriages fail,
right.
70 plus percent of business partnerships fail, if that tells you anything.
Wow. Yeah. I can see why,
Yeah.
it's first of all, it's So, long-term commitment, and there's a lot of stress that goes into the business together. So there's ups to working with partnerships. There's definitely some downs that put, as you say,
Oh yeah.
70. And uh, so your course, let's get back to sharing the screen and getting back to that. Um, the again, business ownership simplified.com. Click on over to the courses tab, and you have the complete guide to determining if a business partnership is right for you. And I would imagine in this course, you are covering a lot of the subjects we just kind of chatted about here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And what is the cost of that course, by the way?
I believe it's $99. It's
Oh,
less than 100, I do believe.
very good. Very good. So,
But I will say everything comes at a cost, and that cost came from me. So for someone else to invest $99, that course cost me millions. so so if you want to look at the value, that's where you can see the value.
yeah, it's what not to do at the same time, what to do
Absolutely.
to make sure you don't end up not doing what you did here and so on.
Exactly.
So really well. Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor, Automation Booster, and we'll be right back.
Is your business on autopilot yet? Do you have automation in place to capture, nurture, and convert prospects into clients via email, SMS, ringless voicemails, appointment setting? Get all the inbound and outbound marketing tools in one place. Go to marketingboostsolutions.com for more on automating your business so you can make money while you sleep.
You just heard from Automation Booster. If you are not organizing your business with processes, with a CRM. If you don't already have a CRM in place for your business where you are automating the delivery of email marketing, follow up, sequencing, nurturing leads before to convert them into clients. If you don't have text messaging, if you don't have ringless voicemail broadcasting, and if you don't have all that wrapped up into under one roof, one easy place where you can log in and your staff or you or your virtual assistants can log in and communicate with your clients from their phone or from a desktop. If you don't have all that organized, look into automationbooster.com. I've been an internet marketer since 1996. I've never seen a tool that includes all of your inbound and outbound marketing all under one roof, as affordable and as complex and complete as automationbooster.com is. So honestly, go check it out and see if that's not a good fit for you. You can book a demo and check out what Automation Booster provides. We're back here talking to Micheal Morrison about how to have a successful business simplified. Micheal, give us some more insights on what business owners need to do to successfully build a business and do it the simple way.
One of the top things I mentioned people, and I'd kind of like to expand on that. I mentioned people as employees, bankers, accountants, but when we talk about people, there is a process to hiring the right people. I know in Good to Great, a well known book, it's a little older, but it talks about having the right people in the right seat on the right bus, going the right direction, et cetera, et cetera. And there is a way to go about that. And I encourage business owners, if you're struggling, and I mean like struggling, can't get people on board with your mission, maybe you have some of these things in place, but you're still there's just something not ticking. I encourage them to sit down, kind of write down the roles of their organization, whether it be a warehouse manager, account manager, what are those different roles that your business has? And then kind of define what those roles need to look like. And then see if you have the right people in the right roles first. Because that sometimes just that little tweak could be the thing that you've been missing. Or it could be that you just don't have the right person. And I don't say people, I say person. For a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, I know especially for mine in the past, a lot of times our companies never took off until I had that one person. And I like to say my external brain that person that can think like you, that thinks like a business owner, but they don't want to be a business owner, but they can execute, they can do all these things. You can count on them. They follow through, they don't procrastinate. Sometimes that's just the missing link. So sometimes it's just the people that you have on board. I know for a lot of businesses that we work with, even ones that have 30, 40, 50 employees, they don't have that one person still. They've just got, as we call them, cheeks in the seats. They've just got warm bodies fulfilling what you're telling them to do. So they're more employees at a job than a career. And then also exploring DISC. We use DISC, which is a predictable behavioral trait kind of assessment that kind of, is this person kind of a knee-jerk person? Are they a go-getter, a doer? Or are they kind of more reserved, and making sure that you have these types of people in the right roles. So for instance, in the DISC profile, the model, a C is someone that's compliant. That's more like your accountant. Those are the people that are kind of introverts. They like to focus on their screen, get their job done. They like to make sure that they're doing their job right for the boss. They cross their T's, they dot their I's. You don't want that person in a sales role, right? They're probably going to fail because they don't like to talk to new people. They don't like to conversate. On the flip side, the D is kind of what I like to say, more dominant person. They're more driven, they're more sociable. You don't want them sitting at a desk having to do paperwork and filings and all that stuff, because it's going to be done wrong and they're going to hate their job and they're going to be in a bad mood. They need to be out. They're those types of people that like to kill the lion and then move on. And so a lot of times just kind of looking at all the different people after you've described all these roles in your company and making sure that you have the right people in those right places. That's kind of another area I would encourage business owners to look at.
Yeah, it's good idea and pretty simple, right? Just to analyze what is the role of that job, and then analyze the staff you have in place, and are they the right fit? And then make the tough decisions sometimes. It's hire slow but fire fast.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and that's not easy to do always, because you invest time in people, training them, etc. And then, one thing I've learned, and it's hard to, it's been an ongoing thing, right? You realize that if they didn't live up to your expectations within the first few weeks, you probably should cut the cord quick.
Yeah.
And rather than continue to expect, let me give them another chance. Let me give them some more rope. Let me give them some more rope. Let me invest some more training in them, only to continue to be disappointed in them if they're dropping the ball right at the gate, and they're not living, they're not, you don't see that energy coming from them to really step up to the plate, then cut your losses quick and keep shopping for someone
Yeah.
else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And go through that process of defining the roles, the function, the description before you hire that person. And then you can gear those questions. A lot of people is, what would you do if something bad happened? Just kind of the typical hiring questions. And no, ask questions that are tailored around what that role requires. You know, for instance, in one of the companies that we work with, they're very detailed. I mean, if they put a decimal in the wrong place, it could put their business out of business because everything has to be precise. We don't want a D in that role because Ds don't pay attention to details. They're all about completing the project and completing as many projects as they can so they can put regional director of the year on their wall. They're all about the accolades and the performance, versus a C is more about doing it right. So if you have all that in place before you start hiring, you can tailor your hiring process to find someone like that. And it's not fail proof, but I would say with the businesses that we have that have gotten through that part of our coaching, they're 90% hire the right people, and their turnover is significantly reduces because they're
Well,
finding the right people and they know the type of people they need before they're hiring, instead of just hiring somebody because they said the right things.
one more time, let's talk about where folks can find you, Micheal Morrison, to get a hold of your services here. I know you're on LinkedIn, so you can Oops, I pulled up the wrong LinkedIn page there. Here you are.
Yes,
Here on LinkedIn, create a business that runs without you.
absolutely.
Business coaching, loans, courses, events, resources. Look for Micheal Morrison on LinkedIn. His website is businessownershipsimplified.com. I think you can probably find him let's get to your podcast as well. I know you've got a podcast show. Is
Yep,
it on your
that's it.
website as well?
Yep, it's right there. Welcome to Small Business Pivots. You're on it.
Oh, I'm on it right there. Great. There
Yep.
you are. Welcome to, here's his show, all kinds of episodes here to listen to, and his YouTube channel as well. So, Boss Business Ownership Simplified for Success. Any final words you'd like to share with our community, Micheal?
I just encourage business owners to find their North Star. Everything gets easier after that. If you know where you're going, it's easier to create a plan and follow a plan. For those that don't have the North Star, those are the ones that I find typically get up and are just challenged day in and day out.
Sweet. Good point there. Find your North Star and then get excited about it. Keep that passion going. I just read a book recently. I recommend it to everybody called Patrick Bet David, which is, what is it? Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And what I loved about that book is he's all about findings, and your core energy can easily come from your enemy more than anything else. What is firing you up? What are you running away from? What is that enemy that drives you to get something done? Anyway, it's a good book. I go recommend it. If you've liked the content we've brought you folks today, please subscribe to the channel. Give us a like, give us a share, comment below, tell us what you thought about the show, or ask us any questions. We'll get back to you. All of the links to the the YouTube channel, Facebook, LinkedIn to get a hold of Micheal Morrison are all in the notes below. We appreciate that. So please share this with somebody else. Grab this link and share it with somebody you know, and help us spread the word about this show, the Marketing Boost Solutions Podcast. We appreciate your attention, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you. Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Boost Solutions Podcast with your hosts, Captain Marco Torres. Now it's on you. Take the next step now. Go to marketingboostsolutions.com for more on how you can wow, delight, and surprise your clients with the most amazing draw card on the planet. So stay thirsty, my friends. Stay thirsty for knowledge. See you next time.